Test, test. patience, we had a closed session discipline hearing that needed us to take the appropriate amount of time, and so that's what we did. But we thank you all very much for being here and for your patience. I will now reconvene the meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. And can I have a board member certify closed session, please?
Madam Chair, I certified that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Ms. Haller?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. And I will ask Dr. Cavazos, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Absolutely.
Please stand if you're able.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on the FY 2026 Capital Improvement Plan. However, I've been informed that we have no speakers on that matter this evening, so we will move on. Item 5.01, announcements and superintendent's report. Dr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At a recent principals meeting, building leaders shared information with each other about growth in student achievement, and in particular the strategies that led to their success. The purpose was to learn from each other and share best practices that worked for us last year, so we may replicate them across the division this year. The data boards used for sharing of best practice are on display this evening, and I really encourage you to take a look at them before you leave this evening. Thank you, principals, for taking part and sharing the great work accomplished by you and your incredible teachers and staff. We were all taking notes and learned something new from each other, and it was a great example of who we are as a learning and growing organization. Last chance, reserve your seat for our October 23rd Family Academy, Family Focus, Building Healthy Tech Habits Together. You will have an opportunity to dive into research on the impact smartphones and social media can have on mental wellness. Then self-select breakout sessions designed to support your family in navigating safe and healthy tech use. Childcare will be provided and raffle prizes will be awarded. Learn more and reserve your seat on our website, wjccschools.org. Calling all future schools support employees, WJC Schools. Join us on Monday, November 4th from 2 to 5 p.m. at James Blair Middle School for a support employee job fair. We'll conduct on-site interviews and well-qualified candidates can walk away with a job offer. Spread the word among your neighbours, friends and family. We can't wait for you to join the WJCC Schools family. And finally, don't forget to wear orange tomorrow in honour of Unity Day as we stand together against bullying. We are leading the way this evening, thanks to Ms. Hunley, and we invite you to join us. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. And now we will move on to our school spotlight from J. Blayton Elementary School.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Herron, and members of the board. I'm really excited to be here this evening to share with you a project that we are incredibly proud of at JBB. You know, we are the home of the bumblebees, but we love all pollinators. And so this pollinator project focuses on the study of monarch butterflies and honeybees. And it's designed to provide all of our students in kindergarten through 5th grade with authentic and hands-on learning experiences that build knowledge and vocabulary that integrate the skills that they're learning across content areas, and help them make connections to the environment where they live right here, right now. And an added bonus is that we have discovered that this project, as it's rolled out at the beginning of this year, has really served to build some community among our students and staff in our building. We're raising monarch, we're finished, hopefully raising monarch caterpillars. And it's been a great conversation starter with new students and new staff. What's your caterpillar's name? What stage of development is it in? Have you been able to find enough milkweed to keep its belly full? We've had lots of really great conversations, and we've been enjoyed celebrating the release of, I think, close to 80 butterflies over the course of the start of the school year. 50 of those were tagged for tracking of their migration, hopefully. Some will be recovered kind of along the way. I want to say before we share the video that this project was sparked by the idea of one really creative teacher and funded by the WJCC Schools Foundation about 2 years ago. And it's taken us about 2 years to get to the point where it's something that we're able to share with everybody. So we are just incredibly thankful to them for that support. We love everything about bees here at JBB, and so this just seemed like a really natural fit for us. The Pollinator Project has two main components. We have, in the fall, study of monarch butterflies and the life cycle of the monarch butterfly. And then in the spring, we do work with the honeybee hives that we have here at JBB. Both sides of the project integrate reading and writing skills, build vocabulary, and then connect to science and data collection and math.
I love caterpillars.
So we were looking for ways to bring this project to all of our kids, that everybody would have a chance to do something on both sides of the product, with the butterflies and with the bees. It certainly has built community across our building. We have children who have created infographics about how to care for the caterpillars that they have right now, and so they've been able to touch every classroom, and every child has had the opportunity to participate and to do something, and so for us we think that's incredibly important.
The kids can see the bees and they can see them working and see them in action. I'm excited to see how excited the kids are, and I expected that to a degree, but I didn't expect it as much as they are excited.
This has been a project that's grown piece by piece over the last couple of years, and what we've been really excited about is that it touches every part of our curriculum at every grade level. And so we've really worked with our teachers to identify opportunities to make those connections. We have students right now who are raising the caterpillars, but they're observing them, they're drawing them, and they're writing about them. Again, we have students who are collecting data on the size of their caterpillars and how much they eat and whether the butterflies are male or female. So there are just opportunities for teachers to make meaningful, real-world and hands-on connections with the curriculum that they're teaching. The art component is new this year. We're super excited. We have partnered with an organization that does a mock migration. And so our art teacher is teaching a lesson about symmetry to all of our students. The children are creating butterflies that they will send to Mexico as a symbolic migration. When the butterflies arrive at schools in Mexico, they will hang out there over the winter, and then they will be sent back to schools that have participated in the United States in the spring. And so we will get other butterflies back to us this spring. And so we're excited to be able to make that connection, both symbolizing that migration and also then with the people who will be receiving our butterflies.
They look so cool when they're caterpillar, and they even look cooler when they're a butterfly, and they have to travel all the way from here to Mexico.
We want our students to be aware of the environment where they live and that we all contribute to a healthy ecosystem.
Thank you, Dr. Schweitzer.
Thank you. I'm going to leave a jar. The beehives do produce honey, and so this is the very last jar of our 2024 honey collection. So I'm going to leave it for the board. I have some spoons.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hunley, and I got to see a butterfly release on our visit. Maybe other board members have as well, but that was really exciting that we got to see that, and kids were very excited. So that's a wonderful program. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we will move on to public comment. Over to Mrs. Donner.
It is at this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the board. Those citizens desiring to speak have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. These speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their names for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. It is the board's interest and desire that all comments are heard and respected. Hence, the citizens are asked to not engage in applauding, verbal outbursts, or any audible demonstrations during the speaker presentations. Personnel matters are not considered in public meetings, therefore the board requests that all speakers refrain from making reference to specific individuals in any form or fashion. Though the board does not respond to your comments are heard and appreciated. Each speaker is allocated 2 minutes to make their presentation, and the board asks that you respect this time limitation. Also, please be reminded that no time may be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair. My directions are concluded.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner.
Our first speaker is Sylvia Tab Lee.
Good evening to you. It is a pleasure to be here and to come before you representing the support or wanting to support the renaming of James Blair Middle School. I attended James Blair, but my sister Maria attended in 1964 when they integrated schools. So my father was very, very interested in wanting to see the coming together of races, but to further the education because of the fact that in the black schools, they didn't have the same provisions in terms of the quality of books, etc. I myself went to Rawls Bird at that time, and you know, one thing that I appreciate about growing up in my home, my father always preached and taught and represented unity and loving and caring in the community and wherever you go. And the only time that I ever realized that I was different than anybody in my class at 3rd grade was because when we used to play a game called Fruit Basket Turnover, well, what happens is one person leaves and another person leaves, and then the class scrambles, everybody sits to another seat. I couldn't leave because I was the only one of color. It wasn't until then that I realized that I was different, but it didn't change how I felt because how I was raised. And I appreciate the fact of how my father and my mother and our family exemplified love in the community and around. My father was very close to and friends with who is Senator Tommy Norman. He was a friend of his back in the day, as well as Dr. George Grayson. I remember those times of, even though I was very young, what the camaraderie was like amongst people, even though you may have been on different sides. It was never taught division in our family, and our father exemplified that. I wasn't really prepared to do a lot of talking because we did submit a video of 7 of the family members who wanted to speak on behalf, and hopefully you will review that and get an idea of how the rest of the family feels. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Next speaker is Mary Lassiter.
Good evening. Children should feel equal entering school. Pam Pouchette wrote this back in 2020, and it still stands true today. And it's really a shame that we even have to try to convince the community and the members of James City County School Board that this name needs to be changed. That should be understood. They changed Rawls Bird, and he was nowhere near what James Blair was. I mean, slavery is one of the worst things that I can think of. And we shouldn't honor people with, who have been enslavers. Sometimes we act like, oh, everybody was doing it. It was the norm back then, so it's okay. I know that they had students and teachers that could speak about what Rawls Bird had done. Our ancestors can't speak about what James Blair did. You know, we need to speak up for our ancestors and for our children. Our children should not be subjected to going to a school that is named after an enslaver. And Reverend Tabb was a great man. He has been vetted. You don't get your body carried through Colonial Williamsburg if you're not a good person. You don't get a resolution from Republican and Democratic politicians if you're not a good person. You don't become the president of the local NAACP if you're not a good person. And I just want to say that it's time. We don't need to keep thinking of reasons that we need to change it because a new school might be built or they're going to change, separate James City County and Williamsburg. This needs to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lassiter.
Our next speaker is Kara McLean.
Good evening, I'm Cara McLean. I thank you for all the hard work that you do, and I wanted to remind you of the WJCC and the Virginia Code that states that as long as not inconsistent with state statutes and regulations, the school board determine the studies to be pursued and the methods of teaching. As this is so, I wanted to bring a concern I had from last spring and from yesterday when I went to view the Family Life binders in the central office. Some of the pages, most of the pages were there that were on the online version, but some were missing in elementary, middle, and high school. Though not sure about every school, the few I visited in the spring and the binders I saw yesterday had things missing. The omissions could be accidental, but as this class has such sensitive material and the minds of the children are so valuable, it is important to guard them, to follow the rules concerning this class, having all possible details available for parents to view so they can opt their children out if they want to. Since WJCC and Virginia codes and policies say that you are in charge of curriculum, and since codes of Virginia and WJCC IGH policies state that parents have the right to review the complete curriculum and all supplemental curriculum, including audio and visual, available online and in person, I'm reaching out to you to make sure each office binder has all possible information that the online version has. I will give you a short version here. The parent resource guides, the IGH policies, and all the kidshealth.org teen materials. And with the kidshealth.org teen materials, they definitely need to be in the binders as there's explicit information in them. And as teen material, it is not age appropriate for 11 and 12-year-olds in the 6th and 7th grade. And the Board of Education guidelines says the material has to be age appropriate. And the abstinence one from kidshealth.org does not follow the Code of Virginia, which states that abstinence education is exclusive purpose to teach the wisdom of abstaining from sexual activity, but this does not. I appreciate your listening. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. McLean.
Our next speaker is Isaiah Morton.
Good evening. My name is Isaiah Morton, and I serve as the James City County 4-H Youth Development Agent for Virginia Cooperative Extension. Last week, I spoke with our Board of Supervisors in James City County, and I'm here tonight to share with you the exciting work we've been doing with our youth in our community and to discuss how we can partner more closely with WJCC schools to expand in-school programming. As a 4-H agent, the mission is to help youth develop critical life skills through hands-on learning in areas like agriculture, science, leadership, and citizenship. Our programs align with Virginia's Standards of Learning, the SOLs, making 4-H an ideal partner for in-school education. I believe that we can strengthen this alignment and offer engaging experiential lessons that complement students' academic growth. Now, we've already started some of these efforts. For example, I've been collaborating with Toano Middle School and Norwich Elementary to deliver animal science programming through our embryology program. And I've conducted presentations at Lafayette and Royal High Schools. And I've even started some of those new conversations right here at James Blair. But I see an opportunity to go further by tailoring 4-H's rich curriculum to the specific needs and learning goals at each school. Whether it's STEM projects or agricultural education or leadership development, 4-H can offer programs that directly support academic goals while providing practical, hands-on learning experiences that can resonate with today's students. So I want to work with our teachers and administrators to integrate those programs into the school day. And I also want our community to know more about Virginia Cooperative Extension as a whole and our offerings, as well as our local 4-H center and the difference between the two. To do this, I need your blessing and your collaboration. I'm asking for your support in making 4-H a more integral part of WJCC schools by fostering partnerships with our teachers and our school leaders. Together, we can create enriching educational experiences that help our students meet the SOL requirements while building confidence, leadership, and real-world skills. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Morton.
And our final speaker is Jacqueline Bridgeforth Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Herron and members of the school board. Dr. Herron, I want to bid you a fond farewell and thank you. It has been my honor and my pleasure as the executive director and founder of the Village Initiative, an organization formed to address equity in our local schools, to work with you. You helped us from the ground up and is all the way up from here, and we wish you Godspeed and farewell. I am also here today to speak on behalf of the renaming of the school. Reverend James B. Tabb, a community activist, a leader, NAACP president, father, who had his children, his young daughter, to integrate the school with, I think, 1 or 2 other students. That says a lot in regard to who he is versus James Blair, an enslaver. And as Mary stated earlier, I don't think it takes much, or it shouldn't take much, to convince anyone that an activist and a leader in a community who cares about people and unity, a school should be named after him. Children should walk into buildings where they feel represented and feel welcomed. And enslavers don't make me feel welcomed. I have with me, and I'm sure I'm not going to get to read it, I tried the last time, but it's a letter that was penned in 1969 by the Negro constituency of Williamsburg. And at that time, one of the things that was stated is we've waited 400 years, and how much more longer should we wait? If not now, then when? And what they were asking, and Reverend James B. Tabb was the first signer on that letter. And he was advocating for things that we are advocating still today. We stand on those shoulders. And any room that I go into, I look around the room and you may not see them, but there's 10,000 ancestors standing, and I stand on those shoulders, and they walk with me. And those 10,000 ancestors are here tonight to support the changing of the name of James Blair School. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bridgeforth Williams. Okay, that was our last one, right? All right, we will now move on to the discussion of the realignment and updating of our strategic plan, which we have been collaborating, the board has been collaborating with staff for some time now, and we are excited to present what we have been working on. You or me? I'll turn it over to you first, Dr. Herron.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This evening we're delighted to present the realignment and update of the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence Bridge to 2028. The plan is a roadmap to take us from our current state to our ideal state, and it creates a system of measurable continuous improvement. To give you a little bit of the history, the original Elevate Beyond Excellence was launched in 2017. Following an objective review of the school division, including a review of performance data, a review of instructional, strategic, and operating documents, policies, surveys, and audit reports. There was administration of surveys to all division stakeholders, facilitation of a 30 in-person focus group to provide input, and facilitation of collaborative work sessions with a representative strategic planning committee. It was comprehensive and inclusive and was the foundation for setting the vision plan and priorities for the school division for the last 7 years. This bridge to 28 builds on that foundation. But there were some special circumstances that enabled us or provided the opportunity to extend the original plan. The first was the timeline for Elevate Beyond Excellence was extended due to the pandemic. The timeline was extended again due to the City of Williamsburg announcement of a study to consider the possibility of a Williamsburg Independent School Division. We do not believe it was appropriate to invite input from the whole community into a new strategic plan discussion when we did not know if we would be one school division or two. The City of Williamsburg's announcement was in June 2023, 14 months ago. And as you know, the school division is still in limbo today. And we don't have a resolution at this time, although we are greatly encouraged by the most recent announcement of continued discussion of a potential of a new joint contract. With that in mind, this evening we are moving forward with a realigned and updated plan to guide us for the next 4 years through 2028. The Bridge to 28 is the outcome of months of work by staff in collaboration with the school board. I'm going to ask the team to start making their way to the front of the room. The Bridge Plan is intended to guide WJCC schools from its current to its ideal state, as stated already. The structure consists of belief statements, priority areas, aims to reflect the changes that WJCC schools plans to achieve, and goals that represent the measurable targets WJCC schools will use to determine progress towards each aim. Reaching an aim requires accomplishing the associated goals. The framework identifies all of these 4 things, and we're going to start with belief statements this evening. And Madam Chair, I would like to ask you to maybe read our belief statements this evening.
Sure. This was something that the board worked on together, and we felt it was important to underscore the foundation of what we believe in for our school division. So our vision is pursuing excellence and championing the success of every student. And our belief statements are: we believe that every student can learn. We believe in equitable opportunities that enable every student to reach their greatest academic potential. We believe in a safe and supportive learning environment that addresses the safety and well-being of the whole student. We believe in a professional, positive, and collaborative employee culture founded on mutual trust, respect, and continuous improvement. And we believe in transparent communication and engagement with all of our stakeholders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What a great foundation for our updated plan. Elevate 28 has one key priority, and that is academic achievement, college and career readiness, and educational equity. And it has 4 supporting priorities as listed on the slide that support student success. And now we're going to have 5 members of the senior leadership team who champion the priorities of this plan, who will now present the goals under each priority. And leading us off this evening with the key priority is Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. This bridge plan to 2028 aligns our current and future work. The key priority around academic achievement, college and career readiness, and educational equity are the heartbeat of the school division. In fact, high-quality teaching and engaged learning across all disciplines through multiple pathways for every student serve as the foundation for all we do, preparing future-ready citizens. The division's key priority around academic achievement, college and career readiness, and educational equity frames the 13 goal areas underneath and their associated key performance indicators, otherwise known as KPIs. This slide shows the specific goals focused on literacy and mathematics achievement as measured by the state-required assessments, better known as the Standards of Learning Test or the SOL assessments. In alignment to the current state accreditation model and the newly adopted state accreditation model, the Bridge to 2028 strategic plan underscores the importance of mastery achievement and also recognizing student growth over time. We want at least 85% of all students to meet proficiency and at least 90% or more to also show growth annually. The same applies to science achievement, aiming for 85% or more of students meeting proficiency as measured by the state science assessments. Next, we have 2 goal areas focused on our pre-K Bright Beginnings students acquiring kindergarten readiness skills as measured by 2 state assessments in literacy and mathematics. The last goal on this slide moves into the annual cohort of students with 90% or more participating in future-ready opportunities measured by the College Career Civic Readiness Indicator. All of our collective efforts and work support the ultimate goal of having at least 95% of the annual cohort of students completing graduation requirements as measured by the on-time graduation rate, known as OTGR. Additionally, the Graduation Completion Index, GCI, has a slightly higher percentage of at least 98% of students because it allows for alternative pathways to graduation, such as the GED. Rounding out the final 2 goals within the division's key priority areas see the division's focus on increasing student access and enrollment in advanced coursework and programming by 5%, and increasing gifted identification from underrepresented student groups by also 5%. And next, Dr. Brown will share information on supporting priority number 1 on safety and security. Thank you.
WJCC remains committed to providing a learning environment that promotes the safety and security for all students, staffs, and family. This supporting priority contains 7 goals addressing areas from technology and school campus safety to our school health-based initiative programming. Our division is committed to implement 100% of identified safety measures and preventing all attempted technology data breaches. Our focus for school counselors dedicating 80% of their time to directly support K-12 students by measuring key performance indicators through individual counseling and small group sessions. Additionally, we are focused on reducing exclusionary disciplinary practices annually by 2%, as measured by key performance indicators of referrals resulting in out-of-school suspension, while exploring alternative supports to keep students engaged in learning even when facing disciplinary challenges. Our focus remains on improving daily student attendance and reducing chronic absenteeism, with a total decrease of chronic absenteeism by 3% by June 2028, with a daily average attendance of at least 95%. We are launching a division-wide survey to gather valuable feedback from students, staff, and families, analyzing their input with a key performance indicator of at least 90%, identifying that WJCC provides a learning environment conducive to learning. Additionally, the school health-based initiative programming continues to expand its impact, with a key performance indicator of aiming to engage 95% of WJCC K-5 classrooms in learning about nutrition, healthy eating, and physical activity, extending beyond its traditional kindergarten through 2nd grade focus. Thank you.
And now Mr. Baker will present the supporting goal of human capital and positive culture. Excuse me.
As we recruit and retain and support our employees who are ultimately supporting our students, we are building a culture where transparency, accountability, and trust are the standard. We will accomplish this with 5 goals and key performance indicators to measure our progress towards these goals. In the first goal, we are measuring how well we are staffed on the first day of school for teachers, support staff, and administrators, with a goal of 100% staffed on the first day of school. We are also measuring annually our retention in each of these areas with a goal of at least 90% retention. To help us recruit and retain our staff, we also have a goal to lead the region in salary. We also gather feedback from our employees in staff surveys with a goal of 90% of our employees reporting working in a supportive environment. A final goal, as we continue to support employees in their professional growth, is ensuring 95% of our employees' professional learning aligns with their professional goals and that they can achieve them here with WJCC Public Schools. Thank you.
And now Ms. Wills will present supporting priority communications and engagement.
Good evening. Under the umbrella of communications and engagement, we aim to inform and engage all stakeholders through open and effective communication. Monitoring 7 key performance indicators will ensure that we're on track to accomplish our 4 goals. We will increase communication by 15%, which will be seen through web stories, social media posts, videos, and news media releases. And we'll also measure satisfaction from stakeholders with communication and engagement opportunities. Finally, we aim to increase volunteer and partner participation by 15% each to meaningfully connect with and among our students, staff, families, local businesses, and the community.
And now Mr. Landers will present the final supporting priority, organizational efficiency and effectiveness.
Good evening. The division places an emphasis on operating responsibly with the resources that are available to it. This priority focuses on 7 goals dealing with the efficiency and effectiveness of operations across the division and includes goals within finance, operations, and technology. Within the area of finance, the division maintains a goal to ensure proper use of funds with a key performance indicator of 2.5% of less of budget will remain in reversion funds. Within the area of operations, 100% of capital projects will be completed on time and not exceed 10% of budget. A focus on efficiency within operations will maintain an annual average of maintenance orders being responded to within 7 days, and a key performance indicator of 90% or better as an annual on-time rate for our buses. An additional goal within finance is to increase efficiency by paying 100% of our vendors electronically. And a key performance indicator within technology ensures that the division's network is operational over 99% of the time as measured to exclude scheduled maintenance times. Lastly, we have a target key performance indicator of 5 days or less and is an average repair time for all division-issued computing devices. Thank you.
Moving forward, the newly updated and aligned plan will have a landing page on the division website, WJCCschools.com. If folks are interested to read more about it, it'll be right there by this evening. A forward-facing dashboard with key performance indicators for each goal will be available in December. It's under construction right now. We anticipate 2 progress updates each year, one mid-year and one at the end of each year of the plan. And this year, the mid-year update will be a presentation, we hope, of the new dashboard. Action plans are being developed right now for each goal at the department, office, and individual level, and they will be our work product to achieve each goal. And all school improvement plans will align with Elevate 28. Elevate 28 will guide our forward momentum over the next 4 years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Are there any questions or discussion items from the board on this? We did have a number of retreats and a lot of good time to work together to talk through the priorities for our school division. And we understand that normally at this time, as Dr. Herron indicated in her opening statement, we would have gone out to the community and solicited a bunch of input, and hopefully that will come in the future. But for all the reasons Dr. Herron stated earlier, we progress each year. We're not quite able to do that, and we wanted to make sure, though, that we still have a roadmap forward. We wanted to acknowledge 2 things, especially post-pandemic. We did have this small thing called a pandemic, which threw everything off. So we want to acknowledge that we have made a lot of progress since the pandemic, and a lot of that is just coming to bear now and in the coming years. But at the same time, we acknowledge that we still have a lot of work to do. We are not where we want to be, and so this is a roadmap, hopefully to get us there. And the main thing is the shift in identifying one key priority as a school division, that our priority is the academic achievement of our students and the ability for our students to leave our high schools and enter further education or a career, and that is our one job. And everything else is important, but it all supports the academic achievement of our students. And so we wanted to highlight that. We have heard, while we did not go out and do individual focus groups, we've heard from our community that this is a priority and that this is the main goal that we need to focus on. And so that is why we have shifted some of our priorities around. And the other thing I'm excited about, Dr. Herron just mentioned it, but the coming of a dashboard that will allow the community sort of in real time to see where we are in meeting the goals that we've stated. Our goals have become much more measurable, and and they will be available to the public to see where we are in meeting those goals, which will hopefully enhance our accountability and our transparency and trust with our community. So I wanted to highlight those things. We will be approving this updated plan later this evening, but are there any other comments from any colleagues?
I just want to commend Ms. Walls for the design of this, and it's very clear and concise, and there's also a QR code there. So for more expanded detail, but I like the look of it, and I think it meets our needs and definitely supports how we feel.
And thank you to all the staff that worked, I'm sure, countless hours on every aspect of updating this plan. So, and Dr. Herron, go ahead.
Just one final word. Just want to thank the board for your input. We started with a draft, and with your input, it changed pretty dramatically over a period of time, and it became a very collaborative effort of the board and senior staff. And I think it's something we should all be proud of as we attempt to elevate towards 28. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. All right, so we will move on now to our consent agenda. And I will read this, bear with me. Our consent agenda tonight consists of item 9.01, approval of financial report and monthly bills and payroll for September 2024. 9.02, approval of the minutes from September 17th, 24 meeting. 9.03, approval of minutes from our October 1st, 24 meeting. Item 9.04, approval of the resolution R 2024 National School Psychology Week. 9.05, approval of the resolution R 2124 Native American Heritage Month. 9.06, approval of revisions to policy IHA grouping for instruction. 9.07, approval of review of policy JEC school admission. 9.08, approval of revisions to policy JFCE gang activity or association. 9.09, approval of revisions to policy KBC news media relations. And 9.10, approval of revisions to policy IFA educational research. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. Okay, and now to our action items. Item 10.01, approval of personnel actions. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. And then we have item 10.02, a special resolution, the approval of resolution R2224, the appointment of the acting superintendent effective February 1st, 2025. I will turn it over to Mrs. Donner.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt resolution R-22-24, appointment of the acting superintendent as read. Appointment of the acting superintendent, whereas due to the upcoming retirement of the current superintendent, there will be a vacancy in the office of the Division of Superintendent effective February 1st, 2025. And whereas the school board wishes to appoint Dr. Daniel Keever as acting superintendent for a term commencing February 1st, 2025, and ending at such time as a permanent superintendent is hired and assumes office unless terminated earlier by the parties. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board appoints Dr. Daniel Keever as acting superintendent for a term commencing February 1st, 2025, and ending at such time as a permanent superintendent is hired and assumes office unless terminated earlier by the parties. And be it further resolved that the chairperson and clerk are authorized to execute an agreement with Dr. Keever for a term commencing February 1st, 2025, a copy of which is attached.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle, for the second.
Mrs. Donner. Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
And Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. We're very grateful that Dr. Keever has agreed to do that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just offer my congratulations to Dr. Keever as well this evening. He will do an excellent job as acting superintendent. His heart is for students, and he will be a great asset and work very well with the board. Congratulations, Dr. Keever.
Thank you, Dr. Heron. It was important to the board to choose someone who we know would bring us through a time of transition with a steady hand and with the support and confidence that I know he has from his colleagues and from the board. And so we're very grateful that Dr. Keever has agreed to assume that role. And we anticipate a very smooth transition. So thank you. Item 10.03, approval of additional appointment to the Career Ready Advisory Committee. Go ahead and get a motion and then I'll explain.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the additional appointment to the Career Ready Advisory Committee for a 2-year term ending September 30th, 2026 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. This was the correction of a clerical error that happened at our last meeting. This person's name was on the list that we received and intended to approve when it was presented to us in a work session, and then due to a clerical error, this name was not on what we actually approved. And so, for the sake of total transparency, we just wanted to go ahead and actually approve this name. So, Ms. Zoller.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Item 10.04, approval of decision regarding student case number 2425-016.
Madam Chair, I move to uphold the recommendation for expulsion in student case number 2425-016 and authorize the superintendent to create terms and conditions for petitioning for readmission.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
And Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Item 10.05, approval of amendment to FY25 grants fund budget. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the amendment to the FY25 grant fund budget to $8,518,910.50.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Any discussion, questions? No? Okay. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. 10.06, approval of budget transfer request for special education services. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the budget transfer request for special education services in the amount of $900,000.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Aller.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. 10.07, approval of calendar recommendation for school year 2025-26. We have a presentation first.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Kiefer is going to make us a short presentation tonight recommending some changes to the calendar last presented as a response to community feedback. Dr. Kiefer.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening, members of the board. When we last talked with you on October the 1st, we provided an initial calendar draft and tried to spell out some specific days for the 25-26 academic calendar. That next day, we did provide the community an opportunity to offer us some feedback on that draft calendar, and feedback they offered. One of the pieces that I want to mention to you is that initially we had suggested that the family conference days occur at November 4 and 5. We are presenting for your consideration and approval this evening that those days shift to November 3rd and 4th. Additionally, the community feedback suggested that we reallocate the CLP day in April into the October timeframe, which is available for you in board docs in terms of the calendar draft. Wanted to share some overarching questions and comments that came forward from the community and potentially try to address some of those questions that happen on a recurring basis. Our calendar, as we tried to mention, is drafted on 180 instructional days. Early release days do count towards that instructional day total. There seemed to be some confusion in some of the community feedback about that number. Additionally, we have endeavored to create strategic placement of student holidays and collaboration learning and planning days for teachers, taking into consideration also that teachers have a 203-day teaching contract, and placement of those days becomes important in terms of the student holiday. And then finally, there is a state code provision that if a school division starts school prior to Labor Day, that students must be off on the Friday preceding. There are a recurring number of comments from our community, and I can't underscore that enough. We understand that it seems strange for some folks to start school and then be out of school. We are insisting on being in compliance with state code, and therefore we give that Friday preceding off. There were 399 respondents. That number, juxtaposed with other numbers, is up from the 24-25 calendar feedback with 260 respondents, down slightly from the 23-24 feedback with somewhere in the neighborhood of 475 respondents. Themes that emerged. I like the calendar. The calendar looks good. I agree with the plan. If you're going to start earlier, you should end earlier. There were questions suggesting and wanting to know where the student holidays were placed, and that's part of the reason that we're recommending that the board approve November 3 and 4 and the October date for the CLP day versus what we shared with you on October the 1st. And then there is a desire for more feedback opportunity from the community as we think about 26-27 and 27-28. And as we mentioned during our presentation earlier in October, it would be our goal to gather regional information and then come back to the board in the January-February timeframe with another iteration of a calendar for the out year 26-27. With that said, I'd be happy to answer questions about the feedback that we received, but ultimately we would ask that you approve the version of the calendar currently in board docs for you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiefer. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Of the 399, was that teachers and community members?
And some students as well.
And some, do we have a breakdown of who?
Ms. Hunley, it's self-reported, and so part of the challenge is you can serve multiple layers in that, so you can be a parent and a staff member. So the data is difficult to slice that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Kiefer, can you just explain, I probably missed it, but why was the shift, other than, why did people want the shift in November?
The calendar committee in dialogue felt like part of our challenge this year was the number of CLP days or student holidays that incorporated a Monday, and ultimately then some students were missing their centers time at the elementary level. So the committee's suggestion was that the November days be Tuesday and Wednesday, thereby allowing students to be in school on Monday and then off on Tuesday and Wednesday. The community felt like, in some cases, that was counterintuitive, and would have preferred a calendar that allowed for Monday and Tuesday to be student holidays, whereby they be teacher family conference days. So that's the shift there.
Okay, and same with October, that's shifted to
The
Monday?
October-April shift is a little different. The committee felt like there is a long stretch of academic time between the end of spring break and the Memorial Day holiday, and felt like it would be helpful for teachers to have time there towards the end of April. The community felt as though the longer shift was between Labor Day and November, and preferred to see that happen at the first part of October. So we traded the day in April into October.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, totally, thank you. Mr. Riffle?
So say thank you, Dr. Kiever, for your work on this. I know we kind of had the discussions back and forth in the committee, and I was kind of, I don't know if we even really talked after we kind of let it go free and let people decide. So I just thanks for taking the feedback in and incorporating kind of both the sides of the issue, because I think it's kind of how we get to a point where like, well, this is what everyone kind of wants now, you know. So it's like kind of get to implement it for the year and come back next year and see like how we can better tweak it and refine. So I think the tricky part is what you mentioned, that one slide where we talked about the kind of state laws and then moving that 180 days, because that's really kind of the factor here when people say like, well, we start this time, we have to end at this time, but like we follow 180 days, unlike some of our neighbors who try to incorporate minutes and time, and it's kind of more of a discussion for a later time, and maybe the state law needs to change to maybe get everyone to the same point, because there is a little bit of gray area of what you can and can't do, and it's described very differently. And as we talked about in the committee, and as we all know, we heard it in the WHRO and at a point where like 180 days is actually not specifically described to seats and time, and so there's a lot of like stuff that's just like nuance, and it's kind of just like it's been told to us, that's what we can kind of do. So I thank you for taking the feedback and then really kind of making it work for us. So thank you.
You're welcome. And to that point, I did go back to the committee towards the latter part of last week, recognizing that the community feedback was running counter to the committee suggestions that we had brought forward, and said, oh, by the way, the community has a different impression. Give me your sense of, as a committee, how you feel. And that feedback came back mixed. So administratively, we felt like we asked the community for feedback. The community gave us fairly strong feedback, so the recommendation shifted to what was presented to you this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we still need a motion, right? All right, can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the calendar recommendation for school year 2025 to 2026 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang and Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner. Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. And finally, 10.08, approval of the realignment and updating of the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence, Bridge to 2028, belief statements, priorities, aims, and goals. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the realignment and updating of the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence, Bridge to 2028, belief statements, priorities, aims, and goals as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
No.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
And Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. We will now move on to board member comments. Mr. Riffle, would you like to begin?
Sure, happy to. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm quite excited about the revamping and revisions to the Elevate Beyond Excellence Plan 2028. I felt it was a pretty actually fun process as a board member to kind of learn a lot about our division in a short amount of time. So I'd like to commend the staff of central office and the many stakeholders who are a part of that type of decision, because a pool of 30 people and then pulling another 30 people, very different ideas come about, and I'm very almost touched by the amount of public service that goes into things like this. And I think as someone who's a viewing member of the public, and we don't really often do this in my line of work much about deciding what you want to go after as a board or as a public body, I think this really does show kind of the heart and soul of what you want to achieve and how you want to go about doing business and helping our students grow and our community become somewhere we like to live, work, and play. So I'm thankful for that time, and I'm thankful to my colleagues for sharing their time with this and making sure this is something we want to improve. Into kind of more like kind of what's been going on and such. I did get to stop by the occasion of the arts, the student artwork that was presented. There's so many of our young people doing such amazing projects, and it's just so cool. So if you ever get a chance to see, we have some of it in the building here right now, some presentations, but it's just interesting how creative some of our students are in taking just like an open-ended art project and turning it into something that's their own. So it was just so cool to see. I also had a chance to catch up with a Life Scout from Troop 20 about citizenship in the community. So as an Eagle Scout myself, I was very intrigued to hear about how's it going and how the program has changed since a decade ago when I was doing it. So, which is crazy to think about. But we talked for a little bit, and I just wished him my best in his summit to Eagle. So, and then I was also able to go to a football game with Miss Ortego and Ms. Huntley, the Rams versus the Lions football. That was, and the superintendent was also there. I was on the field. I was a little jealous, like the angle she got of a certain touchdown. It was.
I was coaching Mr. Riffle.
Oh yeah, my bad. You know, which side were you on, Doctor? No, it was a great game. It was fun to see our community out there and our young people. It was a little cold. I was a little interested about like what everyone was wearing. It's like I guess it was a whiteout versus a blackout game, and it was just pretty cool just to be out there again and to see kind of our community show up for our students and on and off the field. And then in that same regard, it was great to see our cheerleaders and our marching bands. And something I want to highlight today is that there's a marching band showcase on November 2nd. That's something that I think I'll encourage my board members to go and the community to kind of take into, that these students work so hard to produce a show that they go to competitions for and win trophies and compete in certain divisions. It's just a cool place to see it all at one time, and a great place to kind of catch all of them if you can't make the competition. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Mr. Jose?
Yes. First of all, I just want to quickly apologize. I don't own anything that's orange, so this is the closest that I could come to. So I hope that no one takes offense that I don't have anything that's exactly orange in my wardrobe, but I do support the initiative to stop the bullying. And I just want to say I'm looking forward to finally getting back to visiting schools this week and the next couple weeks. I haven't had a chance to do that so far this year, and so I'm looking forward to that again.
Thank you. Mrs. Hunley, can you go next?
Yes, first I'd like to take a point of privilege to wish Mrs. Andrea Donner a happy birthday. Anybody that has to be here and not at La Yaca having a birthday dinner. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Second thing, let's see, I enjoyed the presentation from James, JBB. We were there to see the monarch being released, and the cutest thing is one little boy said to the monarch butterfly, whose name was Autumn, "Say hi to my dad." I thought that was just heartwarming. Also, I was able to go to Jamestown High School to sit in on a Socratic seminar, and I'm not too ashamed to say they did not have those when I was in high school, so that was all new to me. And they were looking at the letters that Dr. King had written from the Birmingham jail, and they also saw a documentary on the Eye and the Prize, and then they were discussing how some of those things are relevant or not relevant to what's going on now currently. And the one interesting thing a student said was, wow, Dr. King really set that bar high. And so I thought that was interesting. Also, we went, Mr. Riffle and I went to a play at Jamestown High School called Southern Fried Nuptials. And we just laughed and laughed. And I just want to remind everybody that laughter is the best medicine. And then also attended the Matthew Whaley had a Maddie, their 25th anniversary at their garden. And that was the first time I had ever went through the garden, and it was just beautiful. And it was a nice way for the community to come out, and because community is very important. And I also enjoyed being at the football game, because I think some people forget that we are human, that we have birthdays, and we like football and things like that. So I think the community likes seeing us in another role as well. And then I, too, got to talk with PAC number 414. They were earning their community badge, young little It was mainly boys, but there was one girl. And just to know that the young children are interested in what we're doing and want to learn about how they can serve the community when they get older. We did have one young man that wants to be the president in the future and one young lady that wants to be the president in the future. And I think I have hit all of them. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Dr. Cavazos, over to you.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to offer a brief perspective on the implementation of lacrosse as a Virginia High School League sport. Back in 2018, February, the WJCC school board discussed lacrosse, and there was a statement that said, quote, board members had an interest in adding lacrosse as a sport, but wanted the sport to grow in local clubs and continue the discussion in the future. Well, I think the time for discussion should end. It is time for implementation of lacrosse as a VHSL sport. It is my impression that the current school board would support integration of lacrosse as a high school sport in our division by the spring of 2026. Presently, Jamestown, Lafayette, and War Hill High Schools have Hampton Roads League teams which have been in existence for at least 15 years. In addition, the Williamsburg Warriors, among others, enjoy large memberships as recreational teams. And finally, several travel teams where players hone their skills and compete at a high level are located in the local area. So there does not appear to be any shortage of interest in the sport, male and female. And for the skeptics who might feel it may be impossible or inconvenient to appropriate grounds for competition, let's just say the 6 turf fields outside Warner Stadium have been sufficient already. And the above teams that we mentioned have been playing there for years, so they're adequate. So plans for expansion or improvement in the fields could be finalized before or after the inauguration of formal play. And there's been some recent cost estimates for equipment, and they may have been off or on, but the most important thing is that this is baseball players buy their own gloves and cleats. The lacrosse players purchase their own stick and shoes and personal equipment. So I think that could decrease the estimates of cost, but also I suspect there's additional funding can be identified also from the clubs and from our budget. Finally, it is believed that transferring the local high school clubs into a varsity sport will legitimize the teams, enhance recruitment efforts, and promote a healthier, active lifestyle among students. The VHSL recognition will increase sports scholarships for female and especially females, and allow increased recognition for the players by organizations such as USA Lacrosse All-Americans and Academic Americans. So I would say high school lacrosse in 2026 hopefully is a goal that we can achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Ms. Chen?
I was supposed to give a SEAC update earlier.
I
I'm sorry, that was
apologize.
my fault. So I'll just do a quick update from SEAC. We had a very productive meeting and discussion, and we have some new members. I was excited to welcome some new parents of our younger kids. I think 2 parents of kindergartners. And so SEAC asked me to make an announcement just for the public and also to try to reach, we're really trying to recruit more parents and family members and even students, high school students are welcome to join as citizens. So if you're if at all interested, please reach out to Dr. Rick Bowmaster. Again, SEAC, if you're not don't know what that is, it's the Special Education Advisory Committee, and you'll have a direct hand in giving the board advice regarding special education advocacy. There is one event coming up that they wanted me to let the public know. It's the Uversity Day. It's going to be held at Jamestown High School on November 16th from 9 to 2:45. SEAC will be providing one of the breakout sessions. There'll be different breakout sessions depending on your interest. There's a keynote and closing provided by Kathleen Gibson, early childhood specialist from the Parent Educational Advocacy Training Center. And she is also a parent of a child with a disability. And then also we decided there'd be a change in the time that we meet to accommodate more participation. So we'll be meeting on Wednesdays, the second Wednesday The next meeting will be November 13th, and we'll be meeting a little bit earlier at 5 p.m. So second Wednesday is 5 p.m. So November 13th is our next meeting. And then my comments, just real quick. I'm excited to be participating coming up at the dance performance, the Dios de los Muertos dance performance at Warhill High School. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, please get your tickets. It's a 1-hour performance, and there'll be a food truck there, and it'll be a great sort of cultural and community experience. So 4:30 and 6:30 at Warhill High School, coming up on Thursday. And I'll just quickly say one of my favorite events since the last time we gave comments was participating in the 25th anniversary. Ms. Hundley and I were there. We took a picture in the garden. I have a lot of personal connections and good memories from working in the garden with my 2 daughters who went through Matthew Whaley. So it was a great time. We got to see the kids that are currently students. The choir performed. And I also met some students who were there who helped break ground for Maddie's Garden 25 years ago. So there was a whole host of community members and supporters there. So it was a really beautiful event, and I'm glad that I got to participate.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Mrs. Donner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make my comments brief. I'm excited that we have a bridge plan for 2028. And that it gives us guidance as a board and as a school division as to where we're moving forward. And I just appreciate all the work that went into that and the collaboration to get something that I think is not only great direction, but also provides transparency to the community to give us a report card on how we're doing towards those things. And also I'm looking forward to the Warhill performance as well. So those are all my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. I will reiterate a very happy birthday to Madam Vice Chair. It's probably not your most favorite activity for your birthday, but we appreciate that you're here and everything you do for our board. And I will also make my comments brief. I know we've had a lot of big announcements in our last 2 meetings, and I just want to reiterate that we are moving forward in a very strategic way. We are grateful that Dr. Herron will still be with us for 5 to 6 months, so nothing is changing very quickly, but we do know where we want to go as a school division. We have a destination and we know what we're targeting. We have a map now on how to get there specific to the challenges and opportunities that we're facing now in our community and as a school division. It is different from 7 years ago, but we know where we're headed. So we have a map and we have a driver for the foreseeable future, and both Dr. Herron for the next few months and then Dr. Keever. So just want to reiterate that the board is taking great care to make sure that the transition is smooth, and we have already begun our RFP process for all the different steps that need to occur in order to identify a permanent superintendent. And so we are excited that we have a strategic way forward. And thank you again, Dr. Keever, for being willing to take on that added responsibility when the time comes. And we look forward to continuing to working with Dr. Herron until then. That concludes my remarks. Our upcoming events, Career Ready Advisory Committee will meet on October 16th at 3:30 p.m. in room 300 of the Annex. Policy Committee will meet on October 17th at 8:30 a.m. in room 203 in the School Board and Central Office. And Student Advisory Committee will meet on October 30th at 3 p.m. at Lafayette High School Media Center. And our upcoming meetings, we have November, it's back-to-back because of, I think because of Thanksgiving, I'm not sure.
Election Day.
What's that?
Election Day and
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
Election Day, that's it. So we have closed session on November 12th at 4 p.m. in room 300 of the Annex, followed by our work session and action items. Also on the 12th at 4:30 p.m. in room 300. We have a special call meeting on November 15th at 3 p.m. In room 300 of the Annex and the school board central office. That is related to our RFP. And then we have closed session on November 19th at 5:15 p.m. in room 300 of the Annex, followed by our regular meeting with a public hearing on the recommended capital improvement plan, so you have another shot at it. Also on November 19th at 6:30 p.m. here at James Blair Middle School Gymnasium. Without further ado, this meeting is adjourned.